Good evening, everyone. I'm Mike Vukovcan from Pittsburgh Sports Now. We're here at the home office of Pittsburgh Sports Now. That would be for me. And we're going to start something tonight that hopefully I'm going to make sort of a regular feature here a few times a week and as warranted, as the information comes in. I'm just going to talk a little bit. Normally, you get my thoughts via my articles or messages in the message room or whatever, but we're going to do something. I'm just going to talk. And in light of the fact that we don't have a whole heck of a lot going on in the world of sports right now, unfortunately, with the circumstances around the country, we're going to change things up a little bit. One thing we can promise you that although the sports world has basically been shut down for the time being, we are going to continue our coverage on Pittsburgh Sports Now with Alan Saunders and the team, Harry Paceris, Cal, Nate, and myself. We're going to give you all the coverage that we can give you that's out there. Unfortunately for us, a lot of our stuff has to do with recruiting and some other things as far as transfers in basketball and that sort of news. So still have a lot going on. Unfortunately, in the other professions, there's not a whole heck of a lot going on. So that's tough for them. And hopefully things get wrapped up with the coronavirus here soon. But unfortunately, it doesn't appear to be the case. So do what they say, social distancing, treat it serious because it is, and hopefully our worlds will get back to normal fairly soon, whenever that may be. But we got a lot of stuff talking about here that's happened basically in the last few days, and I'm going to start, there's a lot of stuff going on with Pitt basketball. The big news yesterday was Ryan Murphy deciding to transfer. Did it surprise me? No. Yes and no. I wasn't sure if Ryan was okay with his role here at Pitt. Obviously he wasn't because he decided to leave, and the big reason was minutes. And that doesn't appear to be getting better, or that's not going to improve next year with Horton coming in and the rest of the guards on the team. His minutes weren't going to get any better, so he's going to look for an opportunity elsewhere. This is his fourth team now in 4 years. But what that does do is it opens up another scholarship offer, or scholarship for Jeff Capel, and he definitely will use it. They're 2 under the limit right now, which is good for Pitt. And how's he going to fill them? As I've probably said this for a month or so right now, I'm going to stay with it, although some of the college basketball forecasters, as far as predictions go, don't agree with me. I still think Pitt's going to be getting Femi Odacal, thank you, Luke, for my coffee, and William Jeffers, the recently reclassified four-star swing guy from Erie. Femi, from what I understand, Femi's going to be making his decision here. Could possibly happen as early as tomorrow. I'm told sometime Tuesday or Wednesday it's going to happen. And it's likely coming down to Pitt, UMass, or Seton Hall from what I hear. Because of the coronavirus, he wanted to take one more visit, but no one's going to be making any visits to any college campuses anytime soon. So the 4 places that Femi visited were Pitt, UMass, Seton Hall, St. Bonaventure. I think he isn't considering St. Bonaventure, and it's going to be Seton Hall, UMass, or Pitt. A lot of the people believe that it's going to be UMass because of his proximity there. They were on him the longest. I believe they, if not were his first, they were pretty near his first offer. I still think he's going to come to Pitt. I think he likes the opportunity here. I think he sees the guard situation at Pitt, although it's the same at UMass. But let's face it, playing in the ACC, getting a chance to play for Jeff Capel in the ACC is a bigger stage, and I think he would look forward to that challenge. And I just think he's going to be that guy. He's a big guard, 6'5" point guard, which is huge. And I think he's going to bring an element to Pitt that they don't have at their guard position, and that's someone that can distribute the ball, doesn't have a problem distributing the ball to his teammates first, but also his big deal is he's a great on-ball defender. And I think he will help Pitt's team defense next year. And he's going to give Xavier Johnson a chance, to get some time to sit a little bit. And I think one of the problems with Xavier as the season went on is not just him. This team was just gassed. You just can't play, and some of it had to do with injuries to Hamilton and Ryan Murphy down the stretch. But you just can't be playing 30-plus minutes in the ACC and expect to be fresh and at your best. And I think somebody like Femi will be able to come in. I don't think he's going to play a ton his first year if he does come here, but I think he'll be able to spell Xavier, and that'll be good for Pitt. So we'll see what happens with that. Like I said, I expect a decision to come either tomorrow or Wednesday. We'll see what happens, but I like Pitt in that one. And the other thing is William Jeffers. I talked to somebody close to him yesterday, and his situation is also affected by the coronavirus. He, at this time, his team was actually still alive to play in the state championship. They were going to play Butler, but that's on hold now. But he also planned on making visits. He was down to a Final 10, and he wanted to get on the road and start checking out some of the schools. The only 3 schools that he's visited in person that were in his top 10 were Pitt, Penn State, and Baylor. Visits aren't going to happen, as we said. So, for what I understand, he's still going to go through with his recruiting, and it's kind of unusual. He's going to be checking out his schools via live video and video cast from these schools, and they're going to try to give him a virtual tour that way. It's his way of seeing these schools. I don't know how effective that's going to be. I would think if you're a Pitt fan, it's probably good news for Pitt in the fact that he's not able to get on campus with any of these other schools. So I've always liked Pitt to land him to begin with, but because of the attention he received after reclassifying, some big-time schools came in on him and are on him right now. And they're making it difficult for Pitt. One of those schools, I think in the end, when this comes down to Jeffers' decision, from what I understand, the 2 biggest schools that he's really looking at aside from Pitt are Baylor and Stanford. And as I mentioned, he did visit Baylor, so that's a plus for Scott Drew's team, but he hasn't visited Stanford. So will that help? Or that's obviously not going to help them, but we'll see how much it will hurt Stanford as far as that goes. But I heard yesterday that he wants to make his decision sometime in May. So look for over the next month or so, in the month of April, for him to try to get as many video tours or conversations with these coaches as possible. And I think he wants to have this thing wrapped up. So Femi Odako will be making his decision this week, so Pitt should find out one way or the other, and then they're going to have to wait a little bit longer for Jeffers to make a decision. The other big news came last night, and there's been some mixed reaction on this, and I know a lot of it has to do with Xavier Johnson. I think a lot of people were down on him because of his sophomore season. I think when they heard NBA talk after last year with him, immediately they thought he was going to be a star this year, and he'd already arrived, and he wasn't ready for the NBA, and I think he realized that, and it's good that he's coming back for Pitt. And for anyone that thinks that isn't a good decision for him to return to Pitt and it isn't good for Pitt, you're crazy. The kid, he's a developing point guard. Does he have flaws in his game? Yeah, who doesn't? But he's only going to get better. He will be a better player next year if his attitude is right and he listens to Jeff Capel, and he buys into what he's trying to teach here at Pitt, and he's part of the team, and he's a team guy, Xavier Johnson will be a better player next year, and Pitt will be a better team next year. Pitt wouldn't have been a better team if Xavier Johnson would have left. Number one reason is there's nobody to play the point. And, you can say, it's not that easy. A third-year point guard in the ACC is huge, and that will be huge for Pitt next year. It's good for Pitt, and what I think this means is looking at everything that's on this roster for next season. It's way early, but the way the roster sets up, there should be no reason, and puts a lot of pressure on Jeff Capel, but I don't see any reason why this team shouldn't be a tournament team next year. I know it's crazy. They only won 16 games this year. They haven't been to the tournament. That will be 4 years now that they haven't been to the tournament. But they're going to have a veteran team next year as far as experience in the ACC. The only guy that they could possibly lose, I was looking at the roster, and some people brought up Terrell Brown as a possibility to move on. Unless Terrell Brown has graduated like Ryan Murphy did, and he's able to move on and play at another school right away, Terrell Brown isn't leaving and sitting out a year and to go to a different school. I don't know what his academic situation is, but I believe he'll graduate at the end of next year, which means that he isn't going to leave here, and he's a good guy to have on the roster. Is he a starter? I don't know, but I don't think that matters. I think anytime you could have a 6'10", 6'11" guy that can come in and play defense like he does, I wish his offensive game was a little bit more consistent, but it isn't. But he does bring you something that no one else on the roster does, and that's a defensive presence, and I think that could be valuable. So I don't see him going on. The only guy that I could see leaving, and we're going to wait and see on this, is Trey McGowan's. I think that's up in the air. Stuff has floated all year about whether he's been happy at Pitt, whether he wanted to leave, whatever. It's something we've heard on and off throughout the year, and I don't think that decision has been made yet as far as whether or not he is going to come back or not. I think it's 50-50, to be honest with you. I think we should obviously find out soon. But if he does come back and you throw in Horton on the team, you throw in Hughley, you throw in Noah Collier, some of the guys that are getting better as far as that were on the team this year, Kareem Koulibaly, who I think is going to take a step next season toward the end of the season. He gave Jeff Capel some minutes, some productive minutes at the 5. I think you put in all those pieces, you put in all those elements, all those ingredients in the soup, and I think you got a good team. If McGowan's doesn't return, I still think Pitt has a good team, because I think Horton then jumps up to his spot at the 2, and you still got a good starting 5. You got some depth, a little bit of experience depth on the bench, and I do look for Pitt to bring in a veteran player, a veteran grad transfer, some type for one season, possibly at the guard position to replace Ryan Murphy. So you throw all those pieces together, that's a good team. Barring injury or something crazy happens that somebody doesn't return that we're not expecting, this is a good team that Jeff Capel is going to have for next season. So I think despite them finishing with a losing record again, 16-17, losing like they did down the stretch, I know there wasn't a lot of progress made this season as far as that goes, but they were able to find a potential star player in Justin Champagny. I think Audice Toney got better. He was their most improved player. And I just refuse to believe that Xavier Johnson won't get better next year. and you put all that together, and you got a team. I think that's going to compete. And third year under Jeff Capel, I think Pitt basketball, despite the 16-17 record, I think Pitt basketball is on the way up. A couple football notes here before I wrap this up, and I wrote about this today in the Diehards. Is Pitt reached out, or I shouldn't say this. Pat Narduzzi followed a kid that recently got into the grad transfer portal, or the transfer portal, and his name is Trey Sermon. He's a former 4-star running back from Oklahoma. He's a guy that's going to be coveted by a lot of programs. The hot name with him is Ohio State. I haven't been able to personally have any communication with Sermon, but I'm just putting 2 and 2 together. I'm guessing that the fact that Pat Narduzzi followed him on Twitter, you don't do that unless you want to have some sort of conversation with a player. And I don't know what that, if he was able to do that or not. I saw some comments. That Pitt, on the story when I wrote it, that Pitt doesn't need a running back. They're fine. That's I don't buy that at all. I don't think if you ask me what Pitt's biggest problem, and I think it's they go with each other, is the offensive line and the running back. I think the rest of the team, I like the rest of the team, offensively, defensively, those two things. And I still don't know whether it's the line or the running back. I still don't like what they have at running back totally. I don't know that they have a featured back. I'm not a fan of A.J. Davis as far as a lead runner. I think Vincent Davis has guts. I just think he's too small. Maybe he'll prove me wrong, but I don't know that you could be a lead back in college football in that size. But we'll see. I could be wrong. I hope I am wrong. But I'd like to see Pitt get a true number one lead back like they had with Darren Hall, Quadri Olison, back to that, those type of size of backs, and they don't have that on the roster right now. Maybe the freshman will come in and show that he is going to step up and take it. Maybe Daniel Carter from last, he was a former 4-star, 3 or 4-star back from Florida. Maybe he'll do it. He has the size that can do it. But as far as what I've seen on the roster, I don't see a number one back on the roster. And if you have a chance, if Trey Sermon tells Pat Narduzzi, I'd like to come to Pitt and be your running back, there's no way Pat Narduzzi says, no, we're not going to take you. You'll find a spot for him, and you let him battle it out. The guy's, he was a starting running back for Oklahoma. So if he was that, and he was getting time at Oklahoma before the injury, he's good enough to play at Pitt. Last thing here is, as I mentioned, the coronavirus. It's impacting a lot of things, and I'm wondering how it's going to impact Pitt's recruiting. Not that that's important, but from our perspective, it is. In the grand scheme of things, no, it isn't important. But this is a time where they're starting to have kids. Normally, they would have kids coming in to visit, making unofficial visits, coming to watch practices over the next month, coming to their spring game in the middle of April. Well, that's not going to happen now. And what the reason I bring that up is because over the last 2 years, Pitt has had tremendous success in the month of June landing recruits, is when they come on their official visit. I believe last year they got 10 or 11, 3/4 of the recruiting class they got done in the month of June alone. That's going to be impacted. And, you have to wonder, Mike Farrell from Rivals brought up the fact of going back to one recruiting period instead of having 2, December and February, maybe just having 1 because of the lack of opportunity the kids are going to be able to get on campuses. And I just find it hard to believe that Pitt's going to, who knows how long, we're all speculating now because we don't know how long all these colleges are going to be shut down. And if they're shut down until June and July, obviously these kids aren't getting on campuses unless you're a local kid that maybe has already been to Pitt, or maybe one of the out-of-town kids that were able to come to Pitt in January or February that maybe is comfortable and then wants to make a decision. Yeah, but for a lot of them, I talked to a handful of kids from Georgia that were going to come up in this next month, but that's not going to happen now. So does that impact? That obviously is going to delay them on making a decision on Pitt, because then you're not going to commit to a school that you've never seen before. So it's just strange times for everything, and especially in recruiting. I would have to think that could be a possibility, that maybe they go back to the one signing period, but we shall see. So, like I said, we're going to do this, or I'm going to do this. The next time, maybe I'll solicit questions from you guys, and we'll see what happens. But maybe the next time we talk, Pitt might have another basketball commit. I'm sure we're going to find out some other grad transfers that Jeff Capel might reach out to, and who knows, maybe we'll have some football news as well. But as I said, stay safe, everyone. Listen to what the experts are saying. Social distancing, wash your hands, do all the smart things, and hopefully our world will return to normal ASAP.